So picture this. The Galactic Cooperative is having the worst day ever. They just got a distress call from the Kalari colony on Nexus Prime. And folks, these guys are in serious trouble. The Kalari are these peaceful, crystalline beings who basically communicate by singing to each other. Imagine living crystals that make beautiful music just to say hello. They're like walking gemstones that create harmony wherever they go, never raising their voices in anger, because their entire culture is built around creating beautiful sounds together. But here's the problem. Savage raiders called the Vorthak are tearing through their world like it's made of paper. These aren't your typical space pirates looking for a quick score. The Vorthak are brutal, organized, and they've made a career out of targeting defenseless worlds. They show up with massive war fleets, bombard cities from orbit, and take whatever they want while leaving nothing but ash behind. 3 Kalari settlements are already gone, completely wiped off the map. The main cities, where millions of these peaceful crystal beings live, are next on the chopping block. Now, you might wonder why the Kalari didn't just fight back. Well, here's the thing. The Kalari have about as much military capability as a choir of wind chimes. Their entire civilization developed without violence. They never had wars, never needed weapons, never even conceived of the idea that someone might want to hurt them just for the sake of it. Their defense force consists of a few outdated patrol ships meant for rescuing lost travelers, not fighting off military raiders. When the Vorthak showed up with plasma cannons and shield breakers, it was like watching someone try to stop a tank with a butterfly net. The Galactic Cooperative should have been able to help. That's literally what they're supposed to do. Keep peace across thousands of star systems and protect member worlds from exactly this kind of situation. But the Cooperative's own forces are stretched thinner than butter on toast across 7 different conflicts. There's a rebellion in the Outer Rim territories, pirates hitting trade routes in 3 different sectors, and some kind of territorial dispute that's threatening to turn into a full-scale war. Every peacekeeping ship, every trained soldier, every available resource is already committed somewhere else. The Cooperative Council held emergency sessions for 3 straight days, trying to figure out what to do. They couldn't abandon the Kalari. These crystal beings had been model citizens of the galaxy, contributing art, music, and scientific research for over 2 centuries. But they also couldn't pull forces away from other critical missions. People were literally arguing in circles while the Kalari sent increasingly desperate messages as the Vorthak fleet moved closer to their core worlds. So what do? They make a decision that breaks about 50 different regulations. They send out a desperate, galaxy-wide call for mercenaries, offering everything they've got. Credits, rare minerals, mining rights, you name it. The message goes out on every communication channel, reaches every corner of known space, and basically says, we'll pay anything to anyone willing to help save an entire species. Responses start coming in immediately. Most of them are from the usual suspects: freelance military contractors, reformed pirates looking to make a legitimate score, even a few retired cooperative veterans willing to come out of retirement. But all of them want to know the same thing. What kind of fleet are they up against? How long do they have to prepare? And most importantly, how much backup will they get from other mercenary groups? The math doesn't look good. Even if they could coordinate all the available mercenaries in the galaxy, they'd still be outnumbered and outgunned by the Vorthak fleet. The cooperative officials are starting to realize they might have to watch an entire civilization get wiped out because they don't have enough firepower to stop it. And that's when something interesting happens. A response comes in from a species calling themselves humans from something called Earth. The message is short, simple, and doesn't ask about numbers or backup or payment details. It just says they're on the way and gives an estimated arrival time. Now, when the cooperative officials look up Earth in their files, they find something that makes them do a double take. It's listed as a Class X Psi Deathworld, a classification so extreme that most civilized species assume planets that hostile couldn't possibly support intelligent life. The files describe a world where the very air is poisonous to most galactic species, where the weather systems are violent enough to destroy cities, where gravity is so intense it would crush most beings flat, and where the native life forms are so aggressive they actually hunt each other for survival. Most cooperative scientists had dismissed such worlds as impossible to inhabit. The thinking was simple. Any species that could survive such conditions would either be too primitive to develop space travel or too savage to be reasoned with. Boy, were they wrong. As the officials stare at their screens, watching a single small ship appear on their tracking systems and head straight for Nexus Prime, they began to realize they might have just summoned something far more dangerous than the raiders they were trying to stop. A single human ship drops out of hyperspace at Nexus Prime, and the Kalari are completely confused. Picture this. They're expecting some massive battlecruiser, or at least a decent-sized military vessel. Instead, what shows up looks like it could barely qualify as a scout ship. The thing is so small that the Kalari traffic controllers actually ask if it's having engine problems, thinking maybe it's just the advanced scout for a larger fleet that's about to arrive. But no, this tiny vessel, which the humans casually call transport, is apparently their entire response to a galactic crisis. The Kalari council members are practically singing distress songs to each other, their crystalline bodies resonating with confusion and growing panic. How is this tiny ship supposed to help against an entire raider fleet? The Vordhak have dozens of massive warships, each one bigger than most space stations. This human vessel could probably fit inside one of their cargo holds. The Kalari Harbor Master, a particularly large crystal being named Zent who's been managing ship traffic for 3 centuries, keeps double-checking his sensors. He's thinking maybe there's some kind of cloaking technology hiding additional ships, or perhaps this is just a messenger bringing news that the rail help is on the way. But the sensors show nothing else. Just this one small ship requesting permission to dock. Then they meet the human delegation, and everything changes in the most unsettling way possible. 3 humans walk off that ship, and the moment they step into the crystal halls of the Kalari Council chamber, every single crystal being in the room starts vibrating like tuning forks in an earthquake. It's not intentional. They literally cannot control their harmonic resonance when they're this shocked and confused. Captain Tom Bradley walks in first, and the Kalari immediately notice something's very different about these beings. The humans are compact and dense in a way that doesn't make sense. Most galactic species are either tall and thin or large and bulky, but these humans are built like they're designed for war. They're not particularly tall by galactic standards, but they move with this controlled power that makes everyone in the room instinctively step back. Lieutenant Kate Murphy follows behind Bradley, and her eyes are constantly scanning the room, cataloging exits, defensive positions, potential threats. She's not being rude or aggressive. She's just automatically doing threat assessments, because that's apparently how humans are wired. Every glance is tactical, every step is calculated. It's like watching predators who've learned to wear diplomatic clothes. Sergeant Jack Wilson brings up the rear, and he's carrying what looks like a simple briefcase, but treats it like it contains something incredibly important. The way he positions himself near the door, the way his hand never strays too far from his sidearm. Everything about these humans screams military, in a way the peaceful Kalari have never experienced. But here's what really gets the crystal beings confused. These humans are polite, respectfully polite. Bradley introduces his team formally, follows proper diplomatic protocols, even attempt to modulate his voice to harmonize better with Kalari communication patterns. It's like meeting apex predators who've taken etiquette classes. Captain Bradley calmly explains that his ship carries 200 Marines. 200! The Kalari council members' crystalline forms start chiming in disbelief. The largest of them, Council Elder Harmonic, manages to ask the obvious question. How do you fit 200 beings in such a small vessel? Bradley smiles, and somehow that smile makes him look even more dangerous, and explains that humans are very efficient with space. Their quarters are compact, their equipment is modular, and they're used to living in cramped conditions because that's just how humans operate. He mentioned something called hot bunking, where soldiers share sleeping spaces in shifts, a concept so foreign to the Kalari that they spend several minutes chiming among themselves trying to understand it. Then Bradley starts talking about Earth, and things get really wild. He casually mentions that gravity on their homeworld is 3 times stronger than Nexus Prime. The Kalari do quick mental calculations and realize these humans are walking around under crushing pressure every single day of their lives. What feels normal to them would literally flatten most galactic species. The atmosphere on Earth is apparently 20% oxygen, a gas so reactive it's literally poisonous to most known life forms. The Kalari use specialized breathing apparatus around oxygen because tiny amounts can damage their crystal matrix. These humans breathe the stuff like it's water. Weather systems on Earth regularly produce winds strong enough to flatten cities, temperature swings that would kill most species, and something called hurricanes that are basically moving disaster zones the size of small countries. And humans just live through this every day. Lieutenant Murphy adds that Earth experiences regular tectonic activity. The planet's surface actually moves and shifts, creating mountains and destroying landscapes just because the planet feels like it. She mentions this like it's a minor inconvenience, the same way someone might complain about traffic. The Kalari Council realizes they might have just called in something far more dangerous than the raiders they're trying to stop. These humans come from a world that's actively trying to kill everything on it, and they've not only survived but thrived enough to develop space travel and military technology. The crystal beings are starting to understand that their peaceful little agricultural world has just become the temporary home of beings who consider planetary disasters to be weather and combat to be a normal part of existence. As the meeting continues, one terrifying thought keeps resonating through every Kalari mind. If these humans are this dangerous as allies, what must it be like as enemies? Dawn breaks over Nexus Prime, and the human deployment begins. What happens next breaks every rule of civilized warfare the galaxy has ever written, and it starts with something that would be funny if it wasn't so terrifying. The Kalari officials gather at their observation post to watch these mysterious humans in action, expecting to see advanced energy weapons, hover vehicles, maybe some kind of sophisticated battle mechs. Instead, they watch 200 humans simply walk off their ship, carrying what look like ancient projectile weapons and backpacks that seem way too heavy for their size. No fancy equipment, no glowing force fields, no anti-gravity platforms. Just humans, boots, and bags full of stuff. Captain Bradley's Marines spread out across the landing zone, and immediately the Kalari observers notice something strange. These humans move like they're underwater, while everyone else is on land. Every step is deliberate. Every movement flows into the next one. They're not just walking. They're flowing across terrain like liquid metal given human form. But here's where it gets really wild. The human Marines are carrying weapons that fire actual metal bullets. Not energy beams, not plasma bolts, but literal chunks of lead propelled by controlled chemical explosions. The Kalari weapons experts are absolutely baffled. This technology is so primitive it shouldn't even qualify as weapons by galactic standards. It's like showing up to a laser fight with a slingshot, except it works. And it works because it's so primitive that it's brilliant. Every shield system the Vorthack Raiders use is designed to deflect energy weapons. Plasma, lasers, ion beams, all the standard military tech. But these human weapons don't use energy at all. They just fire chunks of metal really fast. The shields might as well be made of paper, because they literally don't know how to stop something so basic. Lieutenant Murphy demonstrates this to a group of stunned Kalari engineers by firing a single round through a piece of standard military shielding. The energy field doesn't even flicker. The bullet just punches straight through like the shield isn't there. The Kalari engineer holding the shield generator looks down at the neat hole in his equipment and starts chiming in what can only be described as technological confusion. Then the real deployment begins, and the humans do something that makes every Kalari observer question everything they know about military tactics. These soldiers split into small teams and just disappear, not with cloaking technology or stealth fields. They simply melt into the landscape like they were never there. One moment you're watching a squad of 8 humans moving through a rocky canyon, and the next moment the canyon appears empty. But they're still there, somehow invisible in plain sight, using natural cover and camouflage techniques that seem to turn them into part of the environment itself. The Kalari observers keep adjusting their sensors, thinking there must be equipment failure. But the humans are just that good at becoming invisible without any technology at all. The Vorthack Raiders, who have been systematically destroying Kalari settlements for weeks, suddenly find themselves being hunted by something that shouldn't exist. These raiders are used to bullying peaceful civilizations with overwhelming firepower. Hover tanks, energy weapons, orbital bombardment. They show up, demand surrender, and blast anything that doesn't comply. It's worked perfectly for them across dozens of worlds. But now they're facing an enemy that doesn't follow any rules they understand. Human teams appear out of nowhere, strike fast and hard, then vanish before the raiders can even figure out what hit them. A Vorthack patrol goes to investigate reports of enemy activity and finds their communication relay destroyed, their vehicles disabled, and half their equipment missing. But they never saw a single enemy soldier. The humans fight in conditions that would stop any civilized military force. When a massive storm system moves across the continent, bringing winds that ground all aircraft and rain that turns visibility to near zero, the Kalari assume all military operations will halt until it passes. That's how civilized warfare works. You wait for reasonable conditions. The humans see the storm and smile. They actually prefer fighting in weather that would kill most species. While the Vorthack raiders hunker down in their shelters, waiting for the storm to pass, human teams are moving through the chaos like they were born in it. They use the thunder to mask the sound of their movements, the lightning to illuminate targets, and the driving rain to stay invisible. They fight at night when most galactic species can barely see. They fight in terrain so rough and dangerous that it should be impossible to navigate, let alone conduct military operations. Mountains that are too steep, valleys that are too narrow, forests so dense that vehicles can't move through them. The humans treat all of this like a playground. Every evolutionary pressure that tried to murder their ancestors on that death world has turned them into the galaxy's perfect predators. They don't need fancy technology because they are the technology. Millions of years of surviving on a planet that wanted them dead has made them into living weapons that can adapt to any environment, overcome any obstacle, and defeat any enemy using nothing but intelligence, teamwork, and a kind of toughness that only comes from being forged in the worst conditions imaginable. The Vorthack are learning a hard lesson. There's a big difference between being dangerous and being deadly. They thought they were apex predators, but they're about to discover what real predators look like. 72 hours. That's all it takes for the humans to completely flip this war on its head, and it starts with the Vorthack raiders realizing they've made a terrible mistake. For the first 24 hours, the raiders think they're dealing with some kind of technical malfunction. Their communication relays keep going offline, their patrol vehicles are found abandoned with missing parts, and their scouts simply stop reporting in. The Vorthack commanders assume it's equipment failure, or maybe some kind of local interference from Nexus Prime's mineral deposits. They've been raiding peaceful worlds for decades, and this kind of resistance is completely outside their experience. By hour 36, paranoia starts setting in. The Vorthack aren't stupid. They're experienced military raiders who've conquered dozens of systems, but they're used to fighting conventional enemies with conventional tactics. They show up with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and either accept submission or destroy everything in sight. It's worked perfectly against every civilized species they've encountered. The humans are not a civilized species by galactic standards. Captain Bradley's forces are using tactics that seem completely insane to anyone who learned warfare in a military academy. They're fighting in weather that grounds aircraft, actually preferring storms because it gives them cover and confusion. When a massive electrical storm system moves across the main continent, the Vorthack hunker down and wait it out like any reasonable military force would do. The humans see the same storm and treat it like a gift. They use the thunder to mask their movement, time their attacks with lightning strikes, and move through driving rain like they were born in it. While the raiders are sitting in their shelters playing cards and waiting for better conditions, human teams are systematically dismantling their entire operation piece by piece. But here's what really gets under the Vorthack skin. The humans are using their own aggression against them. The raiders are naturally hot-tempered and prone to charging straight at problems with maximum firepower. It's worked great against peaceful species who panic and run. Against humans, it's like punching a mirror. All that aggression comes right back at them twice as hard. Lieutenant Murphy's team demonstrates this perfectly when a Vorthack squad tries to secure a strategic hilltop. The raiders charge up the slope with hover tanks and energy weapons blazing, expecting to overwhelm any defenders through sheer firepower. Instead, they find themselves funneled into a kill zone where their own vehicles become obstacles and their energy weapons can't find targets that stay still long enough to hit. The humans don't try to match the raiders' firepower. They don't need to. They just guide all that destructive energy into places where it does the raiders more harm than good. It's like watching someone use an opponent's own strength to throw them in martial arts, except with military vehicles and explosives. By hour 48, the Vorthak are starting to break psychologically. These are beings who built their entire identity around being the scariest thing in the galaxy. They raid worlds because they enjoy the terror and submission of weaker species. But now they're the ones feeling hunted, and they don't know how to handle it. The humans have figured out exactly what scares the Vorthak most, the unknown. So they lean into it. They leave behind evidence of their presence without actually showing themselves. Raiders find their equipment modified in ways that shouldn't be possible, their food supplies contaminated with harmless but foul-smelling chemicals, their weapons tampered with so they misfire at crucial moments. It's psychological warfare at its finest, and it's driving the Raiders absolutely crazy. They're jumping at shadows, shooting at nothing, and turning on each other because they don't know who to blame for their problems. When the Vorthak commanders finally decide to try one last desperate assault on the Kalari capital, they walk straight into the most beautiful trap in military history. The humans have turned the entire approach to the city into a web that would make a spider jealous. Every route, every defensive position, every possible escape path has been carefully prepared. The Raiders think they're making a bold final push to salvage their invasion. Instead, they're walking into a maze where every corridor leads to a dead end, every aggressive move just tangles them up worse, and every attempt to retreat puts them in an even more vulnerable position. Captain Bradley's Marines don't even need to fight a traditional battle. They just guide the Raiders into positions where their own vehicles and weapons become liabilities. It's like watching someone dismantle a complex machine by pulling exactly the right wires in exactly the right order. The few Vorthak who survive this disaster don't just retreat. They run screaming into hyperspace like the galaxy is on fire behind them. These are hardened military raiders who spent their careers terrorizing peaceful worlds, and they're fleeing like children who've seen monsters under the bed. Within hours, word spreads through every criminal network, every pirate base, every raider clan in known space. Stay away from Nexus Prime. It's protected by demons from the Death World. The humans have gained a reputation that's worth more than any weapon system ever built. The galaxy's most dangerous predators have just learned they're not apex anything. They're prey, and the real predators have finally arrived. As the dust settles on Nexus Prime and the last Vorthak ships disappear into hyperspace, the Kalari Council faces a reality they never expected. They're safe, but their rescuers are packing up to leave. The crystal beings gather in their great harmony chamber. Their forms resonate with emotions so complex that their usual musical communication becomes a symphony of gratitude, fear, and desperate hope. The humans are methodically cleaning their equipment, checking their gear, and preparing their small ship for departure like this was just another day at the office. Captain Bradley is reviewing mission reports while Lieutenant Murphy oversees the loading of supplies. Sergeant Wilson is making sure every piece of human technology is accounted for. They're not leaving anything behind that could be studied or reverse engineered. Council Elder Harmonic approaches Captain Bradley with an offer that represents everything the Kalari civilization can give. "Stay," she chimes, her crystalline form glowing with sincerity. "Become our permanent protectors. We'll give you anything you want. Our entire treasury, mining rights to our richest deposits, exclusive trade agreements, even territorial governance if that's what it takes." The offer is staggering by galactic standards. The Kalari are essentially offering to make humanity their ruling class in exchange for protection. Other species have built empires on far less generous terms. The cooperative officials monitoring the conversation are practically calculating the economic value of what's being offered. It's enough to fund a small civilization for centuries. Captain Bradley just smiles, and somehow that simple human expression contains more warmth than the Kalari have felt since this whole crisis began. "We appreciate the offer," he says, his voice gentle but firm, "but we got our own people to look after back home. Earth has plenty of problems that need solving, and we can't abandon our responsibilities there." The Kalari council members chime in confusion. This doesn't make sense by galactic logic. Humans could establish themselves as a dominant species on Nexus Prime, live like kings, and never have to fight another battle. Why would they choose to return to a death world when they could rule a paradise? Lieutenant Murphy provides part of the answer when she explains that humans don't fight for profit or power. They fight for people they care about. The Kalari needed help, so we came, she says simply. But Earth is our home and our families are there. We're not conquerors or mercenaries. We're just people who happen to be good at solving certain kind of problems. But Bradley's final words to the council become legendary. Earth remembers its friends. It's a simple statement that carries implications the Kalari are only beginning to understand. The humans leave behind something far more valuable than military occupation. They leave behind communication protocols and a promise. These aren't just radio frequencies or hyperspace beacon codes. The humans are essentially giving the Kalari a direct line to Earth, along with authentication keys that will identify them as trusted allies. In human terms, they're being added to a very exclusive contact list of people who can call for help and expect an answer. Sergeant Wilson helped set up the communication array, showing Kalari technicians how to send messages that will reach Earth in case of future emergencies. This isn't a guarantee we'll always be available, he explains, but means you'll never have to face something like this alone again. Then something beautiful happens that changes the entire political landscape of the galaxy. The Kalari, being the honest and grateful beings they are, share their story across the entire Galactic Cooperative. They don't just report that the crisis is over. They tell everyone exactly how 200 humans from a death world saved their entire civilization in 72 hours. The story spreads like wildfire through every communication network in known space. Suddenly, every peaceful civilization in the galaxy knows there's a species out there that will fight the monsters for them. Not for profit, not for territory, not for political advantage. Just because it's the right thing to do. The ripple effects are immediate and dramatic. Other vulnerable worlds start reaching out to humanity. Not necessarily asking for help, but wanting to establish the same kind of communication protocols the Kalari received. They want to be on that contact list of people Earth considers friends. More importantly, some of the galaxy's more aggressive species suddenly become very interested in diplomacy instead of conquest. The hegemony of Korth, known for their expansion through military force, quietly withdraws from 3 different territorial disputes. The Ravager clans, who've been terrorizing trade routes for decades, start negotiating with the cooperative instead of just taking what they want. Funny how that works. Word gets around that there are humans out there, and suddenly everyone wants to talk instead of fight. The final image is absolutely perfect. That single small human ship jumping back into hyperspace, leaving behind a peaceful world and a galaxy that's just learned the most important lesson in its history. Sometimes the best guardians are forged in the worst conditions, and somewhere out there in the most hostile corner of space, evolution created the perfect protectors. These aren't beings who conquered their way to the top of the food chain. They're beings who survived their way there. They can walk through any nightmare and come out the other side with their humanity intact. But they're absolutely terrifying anything that threatens innocent people. The galaxy will never be quite the same again, and that's exactly how it should be.